Welcome to Canvas. This is Miss Beard doing the first lesson for Advanced Nutrition and Wellness, which is digestion, or how nutrients become you. Follow along with your listening guide called the Digestion PowerPoint Notes as I go through the video. Digestion is simply a process where the body uses food as fuel. Everything you eat is used to power your body. So when you eat something, the food is broken down into energy. Your energy is used to maintain your body, and extra is sent out as waste. The 6 nutrient groups we reviewed in Nutrition and Wellness last semester. They are carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals, and water. You can remember these in an easy way by could, fanny, play, violin, much worse. Remember, the nutrient groups are important to remember, and if you haven't memorized those already, you should probably memorize those for this unit. The functions of nutrients are to build and repair body tissues. All cells are formed with materials that come from food. Nutrients are needed during most periods of rapid growth. Okay, some examples of rapid periods of growth include prenatal development when women are pregnant and infant is being formed. Infancy when children are really developing rapidly. During the first year of a child's life, a child will almost double in weight. And so it's really important that they're getting all the nutrients that they need. And then adolescence, of course. You are an adolescent right now, and so you probably remember back to middle school. Think back to middle school and how small you were compared back then. Okay, so you've done a lot of growing since you were in middle school or elementary school, and so you can see how what you have eaten has turned into how much you've grown. Even though cells carry genes, you might not reach your full genetic potential without good nutrition, and so it's really important to eat things that are going to power your body. Nutrients also regulate all body processes, including digestion, absorption, and metabolism. Nutrients are needed to help your organs and tissues function properly. And of course, nutrients provide energy for our bodies. Food is like gas for a car. It provides energy for us to go. And there is a minimum amount of energy that we need every day, but the more active you are, the more energy you're going to need. Okay, so if let's say you lay around in bed and don't do anything all day, well, you're not going to need a whole lot of food in order to maintain that type of lifestyle. But if you're a basketball player and you like to shoot a lot of hoops during the day, you're going to need more food to power your body. Now, remember that you need good food to power your body if you're very active, and that means that you need to eat foods that's high in carbohydrates and other vitamins and minerals. Different foods have different energy values. Everything that we eat contains kilocalories. Okay, a kilocalorie is simply the amount of energy needed to raise 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. However, when we think of calories, we don't even think of them as kilocalories. We think of them as calories. That's how they're shortened. 1 gram of carbohydrate is equal to 4 calories worth of energy. 1 gram of fat is equal to 9 calories of energy. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories of energy. And I think 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories of energy, but it was not included on the PowerPoint. And then vitamins, minerals, and water are not equal to calories, but they are essential for life. The process of digestion is really important because it helps us to break down and absorb everything that we need for our bodies. Digestion is the process by which your body breaks down food and nutrients in food into simpler substances. Okay, you can't simply eat a cheeseburger and it doesn't magically absorb into your system. There's a process for which the food actually absorbs, and that's called digestion. The GI tract is called the gastrointestinal tract. It's between 25 and 30 feet long, depending on the person, and it's a long tube from the mouth to the anus where digestion actually takes place. The digestive tract is actually one long tube. It is continuous, and so I think that's a really interesting fact. There are two different types of digestion. There are mechanical and then there's chemical. The first part there are a couple, and they take place in different areas as well. For mechanical digestion, food is crushed or churned, usually using a muscle of some sort. Okay, and mechanical digestion takes place in the mouth and also down in the stomach. Okay, and chemical digestion is happening pretty much the rest of the time when food is being digested. So chemical digestion is when food is being mixed with acids and enzymes to break down food. So what is an enzyme? Well, an enzyme is a protein produced by cells that causes specific chemical reactions to occur. So chemical digestion is happening specifically in the stomach. A little bit. It's also happening heavily in the small intestine. It's happening a little bit in the mouth, and so it's happening all over the place. Okay, so digestion really starts in the mouth. So next time you take a bite of food, remember that that's where the process of digestion is starting to happen. Mastication is chewing, and that's breaking food into smaller pieces to aid digestion. You can't just swallow a cheeseburger. You have to chew it first. The bolus is chewed food that the tongue has rolled into a ball to swallow. There is a little bit of chemical digestion that also happens in the mouth, and that's where saliva comes into play. Have you ever wondered why we have saliva? Well, it's to kind of help give moisture to the bolus so that it can roll down the esophagus to be digested. And there is a little bit of chemical digestion happening in there as well. The enzyme salivary amylase helps saliva to break down starches into food. So if you chew a cracker for more than just a few seconds, you'll notice that starchy cracker will start to taste really sweet. And we're going to do a lab and part of that lab, you're going to explore that enzyme salivary amylase. The next place food stops is the esophagus, and it really doesn't stop in the esophagus. It continuously is going down the esophagus, and that motion is called peristalsis, and it is involuntary. You do not tell food to move down your esophagus. Once you swallow, it keeps moving down, and from there on out, digestion is involuntary. The epiglottis is a flap that closes over the trachea to keep food from choking you. And sometimes we get food down the wrong quote-unquote tube. And that's when you choke. So it's really important to chew food slowly so that you don't choke. There's no chemical digestion happening in the esophagus. In the stomach, there is no technical mechanical digestion happening, but there is a lot of chemical digestion going on. Gastric juices containing hydrochloric acids and digestive enzymes and mucus create a mixture called chyme, which is a mixture of the juices along with chewed and swallowed food. Mucus is the only thing separating all of this hydrochloric acid from the rest of our bodies, and thankfully we have a really thick layer of that mucus along our stomachs. If something happens and there's a hole in that mucus, we get what is called an ulcer. Digestion in the stomach is really important. Food typically will stay in the stomach for between 2 and 3 hours, and carbs are the first thing to digest. When food leaves our stomach, we get hungry. And so that's why typically people need to eat every 2 to 3 hours in order to stay full. Digestion in the small intestine, most of it actually happens here. And that the small intestine is where food is absorbed and nutrients actually become useful for our bodies. There's a little bit of mechanical digestion going on. Think back to peristalsis. The same thing that was going on in the esophagus is also going in the small intestine to help move food through the small intestine. The small intestine is not really small at all. It's actually a very long tube that's curled up inside of our bodies. The duodenum is 1 foot long. The jejunum is 4 feet long, and the ileum is 5 feet long on average. It takes between 5 and 14 hours for food to move from the mouth through the small intestine. There's a lot of chemical digestion going on in the small intestine as well. The pancreas secretes bicarbonate and enzymes to the small intestine to break down proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Bicarbonate neutralizes all of that hydrochloric acid that came from the stomach to make the right environment in the small intestine. And bile. Bile is very important. Bile is juice made by the liver, stored in the gallbladder, which is right next door, and released to the small intestine to aid in fat digestion. People who do not have a bile cannot eat large amounts of fat. And some people have to have their gallbladders removed, and therefore they cannot store large amounts of bile, and so therefore they can't have really fatty foods, which is really sad. They can't have a meal of a big chicken dinner or anything that requires large amounts of fat because they can't digest it. Digestion in the large intestine is the final stop almost. I'm getting close to the final stop anyway. The large intestine is actually a really short intestine. It's 3.5 feet long, and not much digestion happens here, actually. But it does serve one really important purpose. It absorbs water back into your system so that it doesn't leave your system. And when it does not do your job, you know, because you have diarrhea. Feces are the end result of digestion. There is a very cool video called The Stages of Digestion that will help you to understand the digestive process. I will post that video in the module next to these other materials. I hope you've learned a lot about digestion. And next, please look at the other materials in the module and make sure that you filled out all of the listening guide. If there's anything that you missed in the listening guide, please rewind the video and go back. The great advantage to listening to these videos online instead of in class is that you can go at your own pace. Please pause the video as you need to so that you can fill out your note sheet completely. Thank you for listening.